Hello, my name is Kunio Hara. I'm Associate Professor of Music History at the University of South Carolina School of Music. I teach undergraduate and graduate students the history of Western art music, spanning from the ancient Greeks to today. Today, I'd like to showcase some of the rare books in the Irvin Department of Rare Books and Special Collections that pertain to music. Here, this is a beautifully illuminated manuscript, a gradual. This is a large-scale book that musicians in churches would have used to sing the Mass. This particular manuscript is from the 16th century. And as you can see from the size, students have a very good idea of what this material looked like and how this would have been used. Again, this was used not by an individual, but a group of choristers who would gather around this large-scale music and read off of it. One of the great things about the collection is the ability for students to take a closer look and even touch the material. As you can see, all of these markings and also notation, words as well as musical notations are done by hand. Some of the initials or capitals are illustrated with multicolor ink, even gold leaf. You can also look closer to look at the grain of the parchment. So to get a sense, the student, that these are not actually paper, but rather material made of animal skin. This is a style of notation called Neumes, in which you have 4 lines of staves and then square notation that indicates the pitches, or rather relationship between the notes. The students were able to, with some training and preparation, it's possible for us in the classroom to sing this notation together, giving another layer of learning opportunity here. This is another example of a large-scale gradual. So again, a chant that was sung in the service. This one has a rather graphic initial with marks pertaining to the stigmata. Again, explaining an opportunity for us to think about the religious and particular liturgical context in which this music was used. Now I'd like to turn to smaller examples of music here. This actually is the oldest material that we have in this collection that has musical notation. This is a 12th century neume. As you can see, and you can compare this neume with a different style, much later examples of musical notation. There are still lines, 4-line staves. So this dates back to the 11th century. This kind of technology or the idea of creating lines dates back to the 11th century. However, you can also see the shape of the neumes or the musical notation is less distinct. By seeing these materials side by side, students get a sense of the ways in which this style of notation developed over time. This is a fascinating example of 14th century, we think we can date this back to the 14th century example of ars nova. Ars nova is a style of notation in which, through the combination of the shape of the neumes, we can ascertain some of the rhythmic elements, how this would have been sung in time. This is actually a portion of a polyphonic composition, meaning multiple voice singing at the same time, and this is just a couple of parts, fragments of this music that survive. Perhaps about 10 years ago, a student at USC obtained additional funding and resources to do further research on this music and was able to record and identify this particular music. And we do hope that exposure to this repertory of music material in the Rare Books Library, we're able to encourage students to create music with it. Here we have 2 examples of beautifully a fragment of a manuscript. This is an illustration, Coronation of Mary. You can see the multiple colors that is used in this particular example. This is a fascinating example because on the surface it looks like a piece of image, a piece of painting. However, if you flip to the other side, you notice that there are musical notation. So what this really exemplifies is the ways in which these materials come to a collection. So during the 19th and perhaps in the 20th century, collectors who were looking through these manuscripts would sometimes find an illustration, artistically valuable piece of manuscript, and cut out a fragment of this manuscript for their own collection. But of course, this manuscript was part of a larger page with musical notation, and on the reverse side, there's often music that remains. And this music that remains is fragmented. However, it tells the students how the circuitous and oftentimes problematic ways in which these materials survive or come to us through various hands. So that was the very brief tour of some of the materials included in the collection pertaining to medieval and Renaissance period musical notations. The collection has even more resources from later in history and from other parts of the world. So this collection is open to the students, all students at USC. You do not need to obtain a permission from professor. You just need to come to the library, sign up, register, and you are free to explore the material that you have access to. It's a great benefit, one of the great benefits of the public university like this, to be able to witness, touch, even smell the music from hundreds, even 1,000 years ago. So I welcome you all to come here.